Hello and welcome to the Bundesliga show, the Thursday edition, which means, of course, predictions time ahead of match week 8 of the Bundesliga season. So, yeah, as you can see, I'm joined by Peter over there. How are you, Peter, tonight?
Doing well. Got an excellent weekend of football ahead of us, and I'm glad to see that you're back and well again, Mark. Everybody's glad to see you back.
Yeah, absolutely. After a couple of illnesses the last few weeks or so, yeah. But anyway, I hope you've been enjoying some of our vlogs as well. Obviously, some of them have performed pretty well too, views-wise, which is fantastic. So keep checking out our vlogs too, myself and Peter, and we will have more coming for you before the end of the year as well. So let's have a look. Let's get started then. So Friday night's curtain raiser is obviously going to be in your homeland, Peter, the Rhineland-Pfalz, isn't it, as Mainz host Gladbach. I mean, this is a funny game, really, to kick us off because it's two teams that are completely inconsistent, to say the least. I mean, Mainz still haven't won at home this season, but have been better on the road. Gladbach are just so up and down, even within games, within matches. They just have no consistency, really. But obviously, both teams have quality. Let's not forget that these are two good rosters, two good squads of players. I'm happy to see the fact that Sieb's been getting a few more starts for Mainz, but, they've struggled at home, which is weird for them because they're normally such a strong home team. Gladbach obviously getting back to winning ways, Kleindienst with that double last week, but they were awful against Augsburg in their last Friday night game. I think we watched that together, Peter, didn't we? And, I mean, Augsburg dominated them in that game. So which way is this going to go? I mean, it's the kind of game that could be 2-2, it could be 3-0 either way. You just really don't know what's going to happen here. But I am going to sit on the fence to kick us off. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw, but this is not an easy one to tip. Peter, anything from you?
Well, I will tip a 1-1 draw as well. I should point out the fact that it's quite likely that we get a very bad football match out of this. And if I can get a little plug in, there is a concurrent kickoff in which the German women's national team is traveling to Wembley to play the English women's national team at 8:30 on Friday night, if anybody wants to check that out, if this match happens to bore you. The problem is that Mainz last week just supplied us with total crap. It was footballing earwax was what it was. And Rory and I were talking a little bit about Gladbach on the Monday show, and he was talking about Gladbach's inability to win 2 consecutive matches. I went ahead and looked this up for the show. Gladbach have not recorded 2 consecutive wins in 21 tries over the past 2.5 years.
Wow.
The last time that it happened was Hertha Bochum at the end of the 21-22 season.
Jeez, yeah. That's a long time ago.
Yes. It's been nearly 1,000 days since Gladbach had won back-to-back matches. Yeah. And, of course, they did perform very well last week. But can they do it 2 weeks in a row? I don't know. That's why I'm going with a 1-1 draw, and we sync up perfectly on the first match.
Well, that is an unbelievable stat. I wouldn't have thought it was that long ago. 2.5 years since back-to-back wins. That's unbelievable. But yeah, thanks for that one, Peter. So go on, I'll let you start on the Stuttgart Kiel game then.
Well, Rory will be very pleased with my tip here. That was just an amazing performance from Stuttgart in the Champions League away at Juventus on Tuesday evening, and I covered it for Bully News. Stuttgart are riding high, though they have had problems at home this season. Let's not forget that Hoffenheim nicked a point off them. So did Sparta Prague. And so did Mainz, as a matter of fact. That was a 3-3 draw on match day 2, I believe it was. But Kiel are just a bad team. They are really a bad team. They've conceded 21 goals already this season. That is, of course, the most in the Bundesliga. 14 of those goals have come in the first half. 11 of them have come prior to the half-hour mark. So the way to beat Kiel is quite easily to score against them early, and I think that Stuttgart are more capable of doing this. More than capable of doing this, I think, is the phrase that I was attempting to construct there. So I'm going to go for a 4-1 Stuttgart victory here. Before I field it over to you, I want to point out the fact that Kiel are Spielvereinigung heute führt in the top flight bad, and congratulate you on the Nuremberg win last weekend that saw Rashid Azuzi can. Jesus, you had to do that, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, we're still celebrating on the streets of Nuremberg, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, it's like nobody can quite believe it, to be honest. Yeah, it's not a surprise that I wasn't there, because I'm kind of known in this area as a bad luck charm for FC Nuremberg, because whenever I go, they always manage to turn in a loss. But yeah, it was an amazing day, a fantastic celebration. And we also got Zorninger fired as well.
Yes.
To the third coach. So yeah, I mean, it was a fantastic day. The biggest win over our bitter rivals in a long time. So yeah, it's hopefully long may it continue, as I say, when FCK come rolling into town in a couple of weeks, Peter, as well. And also against Hoffenheim in the cup. Let's not forget that. Let's hope we can turn over Hoffenheim in the DFB Pokal next midweek too. So sorry, I'm not giving my tip on this, but to be honest, it is very hard to see the away side even touching the Stuttgart team. I guess their only hope would be that there has been a bit of a lack of consistency, as you say, from Stuttgart this year. I actually feel as though performances have been better than the number of points they've managed to accumulate this year. They have only managed 9 points from 7 games, which is a little bit underwhelming, but as you mentioned, Peter, against Juve midweek, they were massive. They were unbelievable in that game, really. Like they completely dominated Juve for 90 minutes, basically. And they should have won 3-0, would have been an honest score in that game, really. And yeah, it's going to be hard for Kiel, but let's not forget they did get that famous point against Leverkusen. I mean, how they managed to do that, nobody really knows, to be honest. But I guess it was mostly complacency from the hosts in that case. But I don't think we'll see the same complacency from Stuttgart, who will be looking to that performance and the likes of, the on-form Undav, Bilal Toure as well, who got that fantastic winner, potentially getting a start in this game, I guess. So I would go for a 3-0. I don't think it's going to be a complete walkover, but I go for the 3-0 in this game. So let's move on. Probably one of the games of the weekend, really, on paper. It's obviously second against third as things stand. RB Leipzig versus SC Freiburg. I mean, for Leipzig, it's in the Bundesliga, they've just been rock solid defensively, haven't they? They're just not conceding goals. Only 2 goals conceded in 7 games. I thought, as you mentioned, Peter, it was just a walk in the park, really, the win at Mainz last week. I thought it was a very easy win. The issue with Leipzig, though, is I still feel as though that attack hasn't really caught fire this season yet. I feel as though Šeško has actually disappointed me a little bit at times. I think I watched the game last night against Liverpool and he missed a couple of really good chances in that one, which he should be putting away in my eyes. Openda has been better and had a little bit of bad luck with a disallowed goal last night. But Freiburg, I mean, they've been one of the kind of shocks of the season, really, under Schuster, haven't they? I mean, they've really played well. But I feel as though this might be a step too far for them. I just feel as though Leipzig, with that defence, and there's just so much quality in the team. And I'm going to go for a 2-0 home win here. What do you think, Peter?
Well, Leipzig have a lot of problems. You mentioned Šeško, who missed 2 great opportunities in the league back-to-back last week, and then also had that poor match against Liverpool. The news did break today that Xavi Simons is probably done for the calendar year after suffering an ankle ligament rupture in the Champions League loss last night. That's some pretty bad news, considering the fact that I don't know who we have to replace Xavi Simons. Elmas has been a disappointment. Baumgartner has also dipped in form very, very badly. So, this Marco Rosa is probably going to ditch the 4-2-2-2 in this one and maybe try out something with a back 3. And I think that doesn't necessarily work against the Freiburg side that have been working with the same 11 for 5 matches. And that was a very, very impressive win against Augsburg last week from Julian Schuster's crew. The only thing that I see working against Freiburg in this one is the fact that their fans will not be traveling along to the Red Bull Arena. They will be undertaking a boycott, which is a little bit common among traveling support when you go to Leipzig. So, but I still think I think that Freiburg will have what it takes to nick a point off Leipzig in this one, and I'm going to tip an exciting 2-2 draw in this case.
Interesting, yeah. And Justin, actually, yeah, he doesn't seem too happy with the current form. He says Freiburg to win 2-1 if they perform the way they did against Liverpool. Yeah. I didn't feel as though they were bad against Liverpool. It's just the finishing at times, as you say, especially from Šeško. He's just not built on that fantastic end to last season for me. And I've been a little bit underwhelmed by him the whole season, to be honest. He's been passing up so many chances for the team, which the way he finished last season with, what was it, like 7 or 8 straight games he scored in, and it's just not continued really this season. So they need him to strike into form, and in general, they need to start scoring more goals if they want to really be a serious title contender for me. But anyway, moving on to the next game, I'll let you start with this one, Peter, on Augsburg Dortmund.
Well, massive rebuilding project for Dortmund after those 5 unanswered goals in the Champions League. What a collapse that was. Thinking about this match, I tried to look at some positives that Nuri Sahin can build upon. And I think that Daniel Malen and Felix Nemecha both played very, very well in the first half, prior to the Dortmund collapse. And of course, we had that tactical switch from Sahin, which made everything fall apart. Building upon those positives, Dortmund still need to rebuild the midfield. The midfield access of Emre Can and Pascal Gross has really, really tanked hard. And I don't. I'm not happy to report that Emre Can just continues to tank. I mean, we just wonder if he has anything left in his career. He's one of my favorite players, and he was. We always hoped that he could revive his career and get back on the German national team, but he's just tanking, and he's pulling Pascal Gross down with him. So who do we have now? We have Nemecha and possibly Sabitzer in midfield, and that's where the rebuilding project starts. The good news for Dortmund, of course, is that Augsburg are tanking themselves heavily. Just not looking good. Looked pretty awful last week against Freiburg. They really do miss Kevin Schlotterbeck, who was the one who scored that amazing goal in the match that you and I watched against Gladbach that Friday. A tough one to tip, and perhaps you disagree. I will go with a 2-1 away win for Dortmund in this one.
Yeah, this is a tough one because I do feel as though, for as bad as Augsburg are away from home, and they really have been bad this season away from home, but they're a different side at home for me. I just feel as though they fight a lot harder, they get stuck into tackles, they press harder, and they have a system that works with the WWK arena, but yeah, it is hard to tip a tie that were that bad last week. As you say, the game was lost by half time, basically. And they were better in the second half, but obviously the game was long lost. As for Dortmund, I'm just not fancying them at all at the minute. I actually think they were lucky to beat St. Pauli last week. I mean, that chance that Pauli missed in the last minute, I mean, that has to be a 2-2 for me. I don't rate Sahin at all, really, to be honest with you. I just can't see anything that he really brings to the table. He just doesn't, as you say, his tactics are all over the place. And that second half was a disgrace, really, to be honest. To go from 2-0 up to a 5-2 defeat, it's not okay for a squad of players like Dortmund. And as you say, his reliance on Can every game is just... Yeah, I don't know, really. So I'm actually going to go for a 1-1 draw here. I feel as though the likes of Onyeka for Augsburg are going to be really influential in this game. I still feel as though Torup has yet to really stumble across his best lineup this season. I would like to see more of Claude Maurice as well, because he looked really good. But I do feel as though the fight that Augsburg show in this game, and obviously the fact that Dortmund are going to be pretty deflated as well after the collapse, I think they'll get a 1-1 draw. But I'll put your score on there, Peter, for this one. So, yeah, interesting game as well to conclude the 3:30 kickoffs on Saturday. It's going to be St. Pauli against Wolfsburg. St. Pauli, one of many teams that are struggling at home this season, weirdly enough. And, the next one we'll mention Werder Bremen as well. There's a few teams, Mainz, Pauli, Bremen, who are really struggling at home, but look a lot better on the road at the minute. So this is another tough one to tip for me, because I feel as though Wolfsburg, they are a strange team, really a strange team. Because, the way I think I watched the show on Monday, Peter, and you summed it up in my eyes. For a period, they come out of the blocks and they look a really good team, but they often get an early goal and you think, they're going to win easy today, but then it just falls apart, basically. And I'm not sure how much you can blame Hasenhüttl. I just feel as though the culture in that club is just not good at the minute. It's been a few seasons of garbage from them, really, from Wolfsburg. But when you consider the quality in that roster, it's just not really good enough in my eyes. Pauli, on the other side, are fighting hard and they're playing well for me most of the time. I think they've been really unlucky to not have more points on the board than they currently do. But, part of me just thinks, they can't get this home form going. So, I am actually going to go for a Pauli win this time. I think the time has come that they are going to break that home duck and get a 2-1 home win. Peter?
We sync up exactly. With Wolfsburg, we're just talking about underachieving every year now. Every year I'm talking about, every year I'm writing a piece about how Wolfsburg are secretly bad despite some of their early successes. Every year I'm writing a piece about Yannick Gerhardt, losing his his shite because he can't understand why the quality is not coming through on this roster. Wolfsburg have conceded 16 goals in 7 games. That is a club record. So their defense is horrible. And consider for a moment, what that means, because they do have one of the best keepers in the league in Kamil Grabara. He really is. So we've got a horrible defense. It's not going to get any better with Maximilian Arnold suspended for this one. The captain is out. And the Astor Vranks and Matthias Svanberg are still unavailable. So Hasenhüttl was actually talking. He was at this Volkswagen event. They were touring the factory where there's layoffs. I've been mentioning the layoffs there today. And he hinted that he might use Benz Dardai in midfield. So this is a bad idea. And this one has upset written all over it. I believe that Pauli's time at the Millantor has come, and I am tipping the exact same thing. I'm tipping a 2-1 upset win for Pauli. And I just have to say, we catch flack for Wolfsburg, but they're not. There's just been a series of bad coaches, in this team, and a series of tactical, mismanagement. Whether it's Kovac, whether it's Hasenhüttl, we can go back to Kofeld and Van Bommel if you want. This team has been tactically mismanaged for years now, and hasn't been well managed since Oliver Glasner left. And so come on, Keats Kicker, with a 2-1 upset win.
Yeah, let's see for that one. And then go on, I'll let you, Peter, kick us off for the top spiel on Saturday evening.
Well, my tip here is relatively simple. Obviously, we can talk about the disappointing 1-1 draw in Brittany for Leverkusen in the Champions League this week. But that was a very, very heavily rotated squad from Xabi Alonso. And Florian Wirtz, which is not really common for him, played a very, very poor match. So he will be better in this one. With Bremen away from home, they're fine. And I do like this, I'm very, very intrigued by the way that the interplay between Marvin Duksch and Mitchell Weiser. These two guys they've been really working hard on the training pitch. They combined for 2 goals last week away at Wolfsburg. And I think they're good for 1 goal again here. But Leverkusen are going to come back, in my estimation, and they're going to get a 3-1 away win. That's my tip there.
Yeah, we sync up, Peter. That was my exact tip. Yeah, I just feel as though, Bremen have been pretty good away from home. Yeah, and I think obviously they've scored a lot of goals. And another interesting stat that I found is that all 12 of their goals have been away from home so far. Incredibly. They've not scored at home and they've scored 12 goals away from home, which includes that crazy comeback win against Hoffenheim and then another comeback win last week against Wolfsburg. But to be honest, having watched the game last week, they scored some really good goals, and I felt as though, for me, that was probably their best performance of the season. I think the football was good. As you say, Dutch was excellent. Visors getting back to top form as well. And, Gruel played well too, obviously the summer signing. So things are starting to look pretty good, really, in general for Werder. I mean, whether they're good enough to challenge for Europe, maybe it's a little bit early for that, but they're not going to be in any trouble at the bottom, that's for sure. But I think, I also watched the game midweek, Peter, against Leverkusen when they played Brest. And Brest are just a hard-fighting team, and I think Leverkusen, their issue is that they've got a lot of squad players that are off form at the minute. I feel as though Garcia is heading on the way for being a flop in my eyes. I just don't rate him one bit, to be honest with you. I think he was poor last night, and he just looks slow, in truth. So I think they look a lot better when they've got that midfield of Xhaka and Andrich. That's absolutely key, basically, for me. That's the engine of that team, and I would expect to see that engine back for the game in Bremen. And I just think the likes of Frimpong will come back in as well. Boniface, who's been really good. Obviously, he had that pretty bad car crash as well last weekend, so I hope we see him back because he's been really good this season, and I think Leverkusen do need him if they want to be at the best. But I do agree they'll get a relatively comfortable 3-1 win on the banks of the River Weser. So let's move on to Sunday then. So it's an interesting friendship match as well between Bochum and Bayern Munich. It's always been seen as one of the weirdest friendship matches in Germany, really, this one, because, the team from the Ruhr Pott against the big city slickers of Bayern Munich, but it is a friendship match, and it's a friendship match that has delivered a lot of joy, actually, in recent years for Bochum. They've actually won 2 out of the last 3 times that Bayern Munich have visited the Vonovia Arena. So, but at the same time, there's also been a lot of batterings too. So it's a bit of a weird fixture. I think Bayern have beaten them 7-0 at least twice since Bochum's promotion. So, but obviously it was also the game where Bayern's title race well and truly collapsed last season as well. Basically the final straw, the final nail in the coffin when they lost 3-2 there last year. So, obviously Peter Seidler has been unfortunately fired. He was a bit of a cult hero on this show, wasn't he, as well? So it is a bit disappointing to see him fired. Let's just say a not very successful reign for the man in his first job as a first-team coach at the age of, what was it, 58 or 60? But it's not ended well. But this is probably a good game to go into for the new coaching duo as well. I mean, they come in with pretty good, UEFA Pro licenses as well. So they've obviously got a little bit of credit behind them. I feel as though Bayern were just, they were pretty desperate last night against Barca. And I mean, their defensive problems are pretty bad at the minute. I mean, Kim and Upamecano is just... It's not a partnership in my eyes, and it's never really worked from day one. And I'm not sure that we might even have to see Eric Dyer brought back into the fold, to be honest with you, much to the dismay of England fans. But I feel as though Bayern are looking very good going forward. And even last night, there were times when they dominated Barca. I thought Harry Kane was excellent. As he pretty much always is. And this Bayern front line is looking as good as it's done in many years, but defensively they're poor. And I feel as though they are gettable at, and I feel as though Neuer is no longer producing those big saves that he did in the past as well to keep them in games and things. So they do have problems at the back, but realistically, they're going to win this game, aren't they? I mean, Bochum, they're not terrible. I don't believe they're a terrible team, but there's been a lot of rotation in recent weeks. I saw that Sissoko was dropped last week, which was a little bit strange in a winnable game against Hoffenheim. But I feel as though this is going to be a high-scoring one in my eyes. There will be probably a lot of mistakes from both sides, but it's going to be a 4-2 Bayern win. I'm going to go for Peter.
That's an interesting take on the situation. I know nothing about this interim coaching duo. I have no idea what they're going to do with this hodgepodge of players. There was even some talk of Garrett Holtman starting at left back. If you forgot that Garrett Holtman played for Bochum, you are correct. We all forgot. So I'm not. I mean, it's the tyranny of low expectations. Those upsets, those times that Bochum actually upset Bayern, both of those times came in the second half of the season under Thomas Reis and Thomas Lech. Bayern tend to batter. The batterings come during the first half of the season.
Yeah.
And as we sort of unfold the Bayern Champions League meltdown, I mean, of course they're going to, run all over Bochum here. I mean, I think it's going to be a 5-0 win for Bayern, unfortunately. And although, I mean, let's not forget there's a Pokal week coming up too, so there's going to be a lot of potential rotations here. But I'm still fuming about this Seidler sacking. You can watch me rant about it at the beginning of Monday's show, so I'm not going to say anything more. I've said enough.
It was maybe a little bit harsh because there was. I always felt with Bochum that they played well in parts, especially in that first half against Dortmund. I mean, they gave them the runaround in that game, but you felt as though they would potentially have stayed up if you'd have stayed because. Yeah, I kind of agree with you, Peter, that it certainly wasn't bad, and it's not a bad team, but they just weren't able to put together results at that particular time, and maybe another 2 or 3 games and they would have got the results. But let's not forget they're going into a dreadful run of fixtures as well now, Bochum. I think they've got like last season's top 4 in the next 4 games or something, or 4 of the top 5, so it's not going to be easy, but we'll see anyway, won't we? Go on. I'll let you lead, Peter, on the Union Berlin Frankfurt game.
Well, we have the first of the games from teams that are involved in this evening's Europa League fixtures. Frankfurt, of course, did host the Latvians, Riga, and they dug out a 1-0 win. Dino Topmiller's been using a Leipzig-style 4-2-2-2, and he gave Kaan Özun, your boy from Nuremberg, a debut in it this evening. I still think that Frankfurt are a very good side, and actually I'm talking myself into Union. I think that they are getting a little bit better as well. What Fish or Svensson is putting together there. Tactically is somewhat impressive, particularly what he's done with Tom Rota and Benedikt Hollerbach. The Frankfurt side that dug out that 1-0 win was heavily rotated this evening. I think that Topmüller is going to put his best in there again on Sunday, and I think that it'll be a 2-0 away victory for Frankfurt.
Yeah, this one really got me thinking, to be honest, because I feel as though, Union, I totally agree with you. I think they've been excellent this season. And again, it almost seems like a flashback to the Fischer days because the football's not really pretty, but it's effective. And they've got, as you mentioned, Tom Rota, who is turning out to be one of the best signings of the season for me. I think he was an excellent pickup. And he's been absolutely key to them. They don't score bags of goals. As you can see on the table, they have only scored 8 goals in their 7 games so far. So it's not like the goals are flying in. They still probably lack that top-level striker, even though, Hollerbach is a runner and Vertessen has been a little bit better this season than last season. But, the likes of Khedira are back in the team. It's almost an old-school Union side, isn't it? And like the remnants of that dreadful team of last season, the big signings are pretty much all gone now. The only remnant is Kevin Folland, who barely gets a game himself nowadays. The likes of Bonucci, Gosens have all gone after big money flops really last season, and it's a team that is in the Union Berlin style of Urs Fischer for me as well. And I remember when Svensson was brought in, and I was convinced he was going to be good. I just felt as though it was a good fit, Svensson and Union Berlin, and so far it's definitely turning out to be that way. This is going to be one of the harder tasks they've had this season, though, because as you say, Frankfurt are still playing well. Obviously they've had 2 back-to-back hard fixes against probably the 2 best teams in the league, Bayern and Leverkusen. They certainly didn't disgrace themselves at all, obviously getting that point against Bayern and a narrow loss against Leverkusen last week. They'll probably be a little bit disappointed to lose that game after going ahead as well, because, but Leverkusen did play well that particular day. So, I'm going to agree with you, Peter, that I do believe that Frankfurt will get back onto a winning run. I'm going to say it's going to be 2-1, not 2-0. But I think it will be, it's going to be a good game this weekend. But I think the SG will get back onto winning terms. So, let's finish off with a Baden-Württemberg derby, isn't it? Not the most famous Baden-Württemberg derby by any means. Obviously, Heidenheim against Hoffenheim, 2 clubs with not the most history, let's be honest, but certainly Heidenheim in a much, much better moment in their history at the moment than Hoffenheim, I would say. They are, by the way, leading currently as well, Heidenheim in Paphos, although that is going to inform my prediction for this particular game because they're playing way away in Cyprus tonight, which is, I've been to Cyprus and I can guarantee it's a long flight from Germany. It really is. It's a good 4.5 hour flight each way. And it's a 10 o'clock kickoff over there, by the way, as well. They're an hour ahead of Germany. So the game kicked off at 10 p.m. at night over in Paphos. So that's going to be not the easiest turnaround for this derby, is it? I feel as though Hoffenheim have improved as well a lot. Credit to Matarazzo, because I feel as though they were really good last week for most of the game. They were good in the Europa League against Dynamo Kiev as well earlier. And they probably were unlucky not to win at Stuttgart the game before that. So the last 3 games have been good. And I do believe that they get the win in this game, actually. Heidenheim have got a small squad, and I feel as though it's really been stretched at the minute. They've lost 4 out of the last 5 in the Bundesliga, and I didn't think they were particularly good really last week against Gladbach. They were well beaten, and only that soft penalty really kept them in the game, to be honest, in that one. And I feel as though there could be goals in this one, but I'm going to go for a 2-1 Hoffenheim away win here. Peter?
Well, I'll just do a gut prediction on this one. I've often joked on this pod that Heidenheim-Hoffenheim is the match that nobody in Germany will watch. No one will watch. And as a result, it's going to be one of the most exciting matches of the weekend. Both of the teams are going to be tired. They're going to make defensive errors. It's going to be a 3-3 thriller that nobody watches.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you got a question, will they even be able to sell out the 15,000 stadium for that one? Because it is, I don't imagine many Hoffenheim fans will make the trip there, to be honest. But obviously, let's not forget they're also in Porto tonight as well. So they've also got a relatively long trip as well. That game's currently 0-0, by the way. So let's have a look at our table after the week. So it will be Bayern Munich, according to our combined tips, it will be Bayern Munich leading the way from Leipzig and Leverkusen staying in touch along with Frankfurt in the top 4. And then at the bottom, it will still be, unfortunately, Bochum and Kiel without a win this season. And then if Peter's tip that Augsburg will lose is correct, then they will drop into the bottom 3 at the expense of St. Pauli as well. So obviously an interesting week ahead this week. Obviously some European games as well currently ongoing, so don't forget to check them out. And we'll see you again on Monday for the review show of this week. So thank you very much for checking in, guys, and see you there. Bye-bye.